and museum, which has had a huge success in keeping his legacy alive and impacting the communities locally, on the continent, and internationally. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce Dr. Gcina Mhlophe, who's going to be our program director for tonight, and she will then introduce the rest of the dignitaries and the panelists that are going to be involved in the discussion tonight. Dr. Gcina Mhlophe.
How is that? Am I audible? Can you hear me now? How are we doing there? Are we good?
That's good.
Yes, that's better. That's better. Yeah. Don't know how we got mute there. Thank you so much. It really is a special day or an evening for each and every one of us to be honoring the one and only Professor Mazisi Kunene, a great son of the soil, a man who came from humble beginnings in the village of Mahlongwa on the southeast coast of KwaZulu-Natal and spread his wings to the rest of the world. It is a great, great honor for me, Gcina Mhlophe, to be hosting this evening. I'd like to welcome you, and I'd like to welcome the mother of the house, the matriarch, Mrs. Matabo. Kunene. Ukutaba means to be happy. Matabo, the mother of joy. So I'm grateful that we are here, invited by the mother of joy, Mrs. Matabo Kunene, and she is the great, great anchor at the Kunene Foundation. I'd like to also to welcome Dr. Thokozani Mhlambi, a composer, a pioneer in his own right, a cellist, cultural thinker. I'd like to also welcome Mr. Ben Caldwell, Chaos Network, arts educator, and an independent filmmaker. I'd like to welcome also Dr. Kwaku Person-Lin, an African historian, musicologist, educator, author, filmmaker, and radio producer. I'd like to welcome Miss Yvonne Chaka Chaka, the Princess of Africa. She is also well known as the UNICEF Goodwill Ambassador for malaria, poverty alleviation, including the video that she's going to be sharing with us. US Consul General, Ms. Cheryl Zalika Sykes. She is from the US and she's living here in Durban for now. Also, we shall be joined by our MEC for Arts, Sports and Culture. And he's going to be with us, Minister Natim Tetwa, Minister of Sport, Arts and Culture. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we can get started. I hear Uzo Sukuma will be sharing poetry with us. Am I right?
Yes, dear.
Some of Baba Mazisi Kunene's poetry. One of the most amazing words for me that come from Ubaba Mazisi Kunene. He also talks about the arrival of the ancestors. These are his words. Great anthem, by your power, break the boundaries of our horizons. Fill the vast expanse of the earth with your songs. Say then, people have power. People, the garments of the night, by their feet, scar the ground with new life. All hail, the celebrants of the feast have come. Generation after generation come here to play. Here they are, our forefathers. They rise from the mist to touch our lives. So our ancestors and Baba Mazisi has joined the ancestral realm. He's here to touch our lives tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear his son, Zosugu Maizizwe, sharing some of the poetry of Professor Mazisi Kunene. Is he performing with Baba Matala Kunene?
Day after day, Shaka went without sleep. He moved from camp to camp, training and coaxing his army, showing his regiments this and that of battle. Sometimes he called by name those in the regiments he knew. Sometimes he took a shield from a feeble hand and challenged the opponent to a mock battle. In all this, Shaka's heart still bled with old grudges. He still remembered those who had humiliated him. One day, he spoke openly to his regiments and said, "Your readiness for battle fills me with joy. Yet for now, I want to tell you tales in broad daylight." Many were eager to hear the story of his life. For to many, he was like a hero of fantastic legends. His former enemies lived in fear. Often in gatherings, he would spell out their names. Shaka began his story. He spoke of the unhappy events of his youth. He spoke of Hubu, who humiliated him before a group of women. He spoke of his clansmen, who denied him their kinship. He told them of the crimes of his cousins of Emalangeni. He spelled out the name of the evil woman who denied them water. Thus, one incident led to another in quick succession. The victim, our forefathers say, never forgets. He laughed mockingly as he watched the terrified eyes of his old enemies. This is no tale like the tales of old. The perpetrators of these crimes still live. Alas, such a tale is devoid of its true ending. The evil men seem never to have been punished. Thus, it is necessary to provide the final episodes. Generations hereafter should say, "Indeed, this is how such a story should end." I have summoned a witness so that I may not err. He pointed to an old man who staggered with age. His hair was white like the winter flowers on the mountainside. Slowly he named them one by one, not sparing even those who were the former king's counselors. Shaka ordered them to come forward and stand before the assembly. Among them was a counselor, Mpembi, who once called his family the cow's children. Also was the diviner, who fomented the hostilities against them. There too was the man who had sought the former king's favor by spreading scandalous rumors against Nandi. "I only did it, my lord, to please those who sent me, those who hated you and the mother of our nation." Shaka shouted at him angrily, demanding the names of those men. Trembling, the counselor spurted out even the names of those who were dead. Seeing the men so overwhelmed with fear, Shaka laughed and said, "Did you let these evil men destroy the reputation of our nation? Did you sleep in peace while a woman wandered in the wilderness?" The man was quiet, knowing these barbed words challenged his own role. Shaka finally said, "Whoever does not intervene in such cruelties only spreads the disease of his own cowardice. Such a man is not a man. He destroys the reputation and pride of our nation. You too are guilty with all your masters." He directed the young men to round up all the culprits. "I have long dreamt of a day like this, to avenge myself against the vermin that cursed my youth. If any among you still has something to say, let him speak now before his sun sets." "My lord, it is hard to serve faithfully one's king," commented the counselor. "Yet it is clear a man must pay for his past judgment. Such a man is swept away by the rivers of time. We too, father of our nation, share in such a fate. Our deeds deserve the punishment designed for us by history. I hold no grudge against my king. To those who shall live hereafter, I ask them to serve our king faithfully, nor should they look down on us who failed. A great error is best understood by those who are not of it. Long may you live, my lord. Live to give the best of our nation." The words of this old man moved Shaka deeply, but he did not show it, for a ruler must rarely show his feelings. He said, The words would have been welcomed had they been uttered wisely at the right moment. But today, they have lost their meaning. Indeed, they are bitter, as though meant to buy a reputation. I have one word to say. May they be fulfilled, as from the speaker's own lips. Yet anyone is guilty who speaks only after the events. He turned to those in the assembly and said, "Perhaps you feel the sad fate of these men." One of the king's counselors, who was respected throughout the land, stood up and said, "My lord, by the right of the assembly and the ancient laws of our forefathers, permit me to speak. I was there when these things happened. It was I who opposed the evil talk against the Princess Nandi. Then I lost the respect of many in the assembly. I know these people and all their past crimes. Yet I believe it was for the king they did these things. I did then, and still now, blame the king, your father." Silence fell on the assembly, as though his words had violated some ancient sacred code. But to this, he paid no attention. Instead, he continued, "The crimes of the powerful fall on the shoulders of the weak. It is you who see further than tomorrow, whose judgment must accord with the truth of our times." Shaka concentrated his mind in silence. Finally, he said, "I thank you for these words. You are truly a man of greatness, but my conscience troubles me. If a nation surrenders its ancestral powers to its rulers, shall it not lose the essence of its nationhood? Surely, blaming its king and its rulers is not enough. Thus, I do not take your argument, Father, however persuasive. I do not seek to avenge myself or my mother, but that we should maintain some laws to create a great nation. No nation survives only through its weapons. A nation's true greatness begins from little truths. Those who came hereafter must learn these events. Self-serving men eventually destroy great nations." His face was contorted in anger, and his voice lost its mellowness. "I forgive you only because of the great task
I believe that is the end of the audio that we have. Mina?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That was Zosukuma, the son of the one and only Prof. Mazisi Kunene, and with the great musician, the son of KwaZulu-Natal, a powerful man, Mr. Madala Kunene. He was born Mkumbane, what soon became known as Cato Manor, a vibrant musician, a community leader, an elder right now who does amazing work, who inspires many, many up-and-coming musicians, and who speaks his mind. This is Umtimande. We're talking about the Kunene family. Umtimande, Ogayede, Omgosa, Lubambo Lunye, Lusilungaba Lubili, Lufuze Kabonina, Masango, Makulu, Nawabantu, Kunawezinkomo, Nina, Bagwa, Malambule, City, Mtimande. Those are the family praise names. We celebrate the Kunene family. We know that they gave birth to amazing, amazing talents and great minds. Right now, we shall continue. I'd like to call another creative spirit. This is Dr. Thokozani Mhlambi, and he's going to share some poetic music with us. Has he arrived?
Yes, I'm here.
Yebo, yes, ngiyakubona.
Yebo.
Yebo.
um,
Awuqala sikuzwe.
yes, so the extract I'm sharing is a reflection on our present moment, thinking about this idea of isililo, or what we can call a great bereavement. And we know that in Not Dumehlezi Kamenzi, there's this episode where Shaka calls a great bereavement over the loss of his mother. And then people have to shun sociality in much the same way that today we need to shun sociality. We are being asked to shun sociality and hold back on certain kind of celebrations and entertainment things for this bereavement. And so this is a musical reflection on that. I'm not sure, Michael, are you going to play it or should I play it on my side? Okay, cool. I'll play it myself. I shall play it.
Sorry, I was just struggling with the mute there. I have it here if you want me to play it, or if you want to play it, that's fine.
I can play it. I can play it.
Make sure the sound works on your side. Keep it open.
Just give me a moment then.
I've got it right here if you want me to play it.
I've got it as well. Let me just open it. Okay, my.
Here we go. Let me play it for you.
No, I've got it. I've got it. I think it's going to be better, a smoother connection on my side. Share screen. Okay, you need to allow me to share the screen. Michael, you need to allow me as the host to share the screen.
You should be fine there, but I'll make you a co-host as well. There you are. We see it.
Over to you, Program Director.
Nazo, we're back in business. Siyabonga kakhulu, Dr. Thokozani Mhlambi. Yes, this is the tribute. Sibonga umsebenzi wakho kakhulu. That gives it another dimension, this commemoration that we are having here tonight. Also, I'd like to talk about Professor Mazisi Kunene as a pioneer, because he was specially chosen by the president of the ANC, Babu Oliver Tambo, to go to represent our country in Europe and in the United Kingdom, a job he did excellently. Many who have interacted with him will tell you what a good job he did. Not only did he impress people who were in political spaces, but also he touched lives of many, many creative spirits out there who never stopped talking about the work, the pioneering work done by Professor Mazisi Kunene. And then he also continued writing in his own mother tongue, isiZulu, and even when he went to teach in different institutions, he made sure that he shares the light that he possessed of shining it onto the heritage of our people. So someone who would have met him, I would like to call Mr. Ben Caldwell to address us now. He's an arts educator, independent filmmaker. He grew up assisting his grandfather, who projected movies at a small theater in New Mexico. His passion for the visual arts led him to study filmmaking in UCLA and reside in the neighborhood of Lynmet Park, the epicenter for the African-American art scene in Los Angeles. Yes, Mr. Ben Caldwell grew to also do more work in the education space. He taught film and video at Howard University in Washington, D.C. from 1981 to 84. Caldwell returned to Lynmet Park and created an independent studio for video production and experimentation. That became the KAO Network, a community arts center that provides training on digital arts, media, arts, and multimedia. It remains the only organization of its kind in South Central Los Angeles. Please welcome Mr. Ben Caldwell.
Hello, can you hear? Do you hear me? All right. Yes, it is wonderful to talk to you from here to South Africa. I consider South Africa, especially through Mazisi Kunene, my second home. because
Wonderful.
Mazisi considered, when I worked for him as a TA at UCLA in the literature class that he taught, the one thing that I liked the most about him and his teaching was his Pan-African look at all of us. He really hammered in that perspective that we were one Africa, and he taught in that manner, and it helped provide us all with a foundation that we could not get here in the United States because of his depth of being in Africa and then in Europe and working with such artists as Salvador Dali and Picasso and bringing that kind of information to us by way of an African perspective was one of the more important things for, I think, all of us at that school. We drank from his well very well for the whole time that he was there. Hello. The other thing that I think is really pretty good about being with Professor Kunene is the whole South African movement that we had going on at UCLA, ended up going from what we did in the 60s, right as it was like almost like a panther that was unleashed from the problems that we were dealing with here. And we saw our brothers in South Africa going through the same thing, except with same skin, same problems, same cultures, going at our cultures and imprisoning them. And so all of us put our focus toward you brothers in South Africa and did all we could to make sure that that there was one Africa there too. And that's the prospects that we're taking on now. Right now, I'm working on interconnecting communities through this thread that we're calling Sankofa Cities, which is to go hurriedly into the future, but not to forget this wonderful past. Again, that's Mazisi Kunene's basis that we're using toward that. I really loved how he wanted to only speak in the wonderfulness of the Zulu language because of all its clicks and pops and wonderfulness sounds, that needed to be included in the scripts and the stories of your people. It doesn't need to be said in European language. All of that is what we learned from Mazisi Kunene. All right, I would like to start the video, and Michael could probably play it when he can. The video that we were going to play is a video that we did right after the uprising here, the last one in 91, 92, after Rodney King's event that is very similar to the event that took place here, except that our brother died in Minneapolis. But I thought it would be very pertinent to the time period because it showed Zosukuma reaction to the uprising. So Michael, have you queued it up? I sent it to you guys.
The National Guard occupied the park. The National Guard occupied the park. In 1992, they returned. But the enduring presence in this community has been art and artists. This is the first piece that I'm going to play is a piece that I wrote in response to the riots that happened in Los Angeles as well as the one in Watts. a few years ago.
So that gives you a little taste of what we were able to do. I thought it was quite unique for him to do something that wonderful about such a horrible event, but it also shows the insight of youth and how they see things. So this video is what? It's just a picture of me. So
Ben, it's
that's
just
my present.
your video is not showing on while you're talking, so I've put a picture of you there.
Oh, okay. So I'm done for the moment. And pass it on to the host, please.
Siyabonga kakhulu. Thank you so much, Mr. Caldwell. Siyabonga. Are we back? Are we back? Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your contribution. We're gonna come back later with the question and answer sessions. Stay with us. I'd like to hand over to Nsika Gumede to welcome some of the participants who have joined us now. I can see my sister Sivon there. She's here with us. Sawubona, Sivon. I see you. Welcome. This is a very important Zoom. Corona can't touch us. We don't bow to Corona. We're doing this. So important. Nsika, are you there? Are we good?
Yes, I am. I'm very good. Thank you.
Ngiyabonga, ngiyabonga.
Siyabonga,
And we're going to be
siyabonga.
welcoming the guest lecturer.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much again, Program Director. Okay, so before I continue, I just wanted to acknowledge the presence of the following people who have joined us tonight. Mazisi Kunene, who is the Executive Managing Trustee of the Kunene Foundation and co-founder of the Kunene Foundation and Museum. The Honorable Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, Mr. Natin Tetwa, the U.S. Consul General, Mrs. Cheryl Sykes. I just wanted to make special mention of the representation of the Mazisi Kunene Foundation Board of Trustees under the leadership of its co-founder, Mr. Chairman Andres Botha. He's unable to join us tonight, but he sent a message, which I think we'll be able to read later on. The Mazisi Kunene Museum Board of Trustees, which is a separate board, led by Mr. Mavuso Msimang, who's also unable to join tonight, but he's also sent a message. More importantly, I mean, last but not least, I wanted to acknowledge the former chairman of the Mazisi Kunene Foundation, the founding chairman, who is Professor Benny Huapa, is also sent a message of support. So as well as Umam Uyuvon Chaka Chaka, Umam Tlina has, mentioned her and read a brief bio, and Ms. Mam Yvonne doesn't need any further introduction by me. Everyone knows who Mam Yvonne is. So, and all the other panelists as well. I just wanted to also mention Mr. Ben Caldwell as well, who joins us from the United States. And of course, Umam Gcina Mhlophe, the founder of Gcina Nosiko Trust and a close associate of the Mazisi Kunene Foundation and Kunene Museum. So I would like to first start, by saying, on a personal note, that it's been an incredible journey for me. On a personal note, joining the Kunene Foundation, being asked to join the Kunene Foundation by Mrs. Mataba Kunene at the time. This was 11 years ago. I didn't think that, I was I didn't even understand what I was walking into at the time. It's been such an incredible experience for me on a personal level that, the things that I've learned, I would not have learned anywhere else. It's created awareness, for the sacrifices that have been made by the people in exile. And it's created awareness, on many levels, because studying Kunene and studying the works of Professor Kunene, it's a complex person, Professor Kunene, who's got, a rich history and has left an indelible mark, both academically and politically throughout the world. So, for me, I would not change the 11 years for anything, but I just want to also mention that being, working in close proximity with Mrs. Kunene has afforded me the opportunity to receive rich oral history, which I'm in a position to, accession further and add to this incredible collection that I'll speak about shortly. So this has been truly an exceptional experience for me. So I just want to welcome you to the Mazisi Kunene Museum. I say welcome to the Mazisi Kunene Museum because Mrs. Kunene and I join you and join the celebration from the Kunene Museum, which is located in Glenwood in Devon. So this is the only home or the former home that was that Professor Kunene stayed at after coming back in 1991 from a 34 years stint in exile. I say stint, but for a lengthy 34 years that was spent in exile by Professor Kunene. So this home, I'm sitting here next to close to 11,000 handwritten original isiZulu poems. So there's a lot of work that we have done at the foundation and the museum, but there's also a lot of work that we still need to do that still lies ahead for us. Here at the Kunene Foundation and Museum, we are proud to be associated with many people who continue to add value to growing the collection and creating the awareness that because as we know, the prime years of Kunene's life were spent in exile, and we still need to do a lot of work to educate the people of this country about who Kunene was, because internationally he's extremely respected. I mean, his seminal work, Unodumehle Zikamenzi, which he wrote back in the late 60s and was published early on in the 70s and 80s, has received international acclaim. And he's received international awards, and the awards continue to pour in even long after he's passed away. So such is the respect that is being commanded by Professor Mazisi Kunene internationally. And would like, as a foundation, and I think I'll take the liberty to speak for the family, that, would like to share the work, with the nation, because having a body of work that has been compared to the manuscripts of Timbuktu as huge as the work is, it's only second to that collection, in Africa. It's very important that we ensure that the work is preserved and the work is distributed to the people, because it's critical, as we know, that embedded in the language is the culture. It's important for us to continue to promote our language and the development of isiZulu language, so that it rises to the level of other languages and becomes medium of expression, in tertiary institutions at the professional level. So without taking too much on that, I just wanted to say that, a brief history of Kunene, he was born befittingly during what we now know as Africa Month on May 12 in 1930. And that is why we celebrate or commemorate this celebration is happening within Africa Month. So he was born in Namahlongwa, in a rural community which is 70 kilometers south of Durban. And he attended lower grades of school there. He then went on to graduate and attended high school. I think he spent 1 year in a local high school there and went to Marion Hill. I think it's St. Mary's now in Marion Hill. That's where he graduated and got his matric. He went on to attend, his tertiary education in University of Roma, as well as University of KwaZulu-Natal. At the University of KwaZulu-Natal, he obtained his master's in literature back in the early 50s. But because of the laws of apartheid at the time, Black people could not graduate, so he did get his doctorate, which is why when we visit the museum, you'll see a certificate that says July 2000. It was because the government of this country held a special ceremony back in 2000 to celebrate the people who couldn't get their degrees handed to them at the time, back in the 50s, at least the people who are still alive at the time. So we have that. And after graduating at University of Natal, he went on to become the head of studies at Adams College in Amazimtoti, where he made acquaintances and met with people like Dr. Buthelezi, who remained close with him because they shared, sometimes they differed with political ideology, but they shared, common values when it comes to culture, and language, because they are both from KwaZulu. Many other people that he met there. And then in 1958, he was exiled. He settled in the UK, settling in the UK, he started getting involved politically because of the situation at the time. He got involved politically. He was part of the ANC under the leadership of Oliver Tambo, as we've heard before. And they started the anti-apartheid movement. 2 years later, he was part of the people who started the African National Congress office in London. And until he became involved, extensively, with the political struggle. He went on many diplomatic missions in Africa, being sent by the African National Congress, having trained in Algeria in 1963 under Umkhonto weSizwe. So these are some of the, stories that, are not told, so it's important that we educate the people of the contribution of Prof. Kunene on that end. He then, met Mrs. Matabo Kunene and had a family, and they moved to Los Angeles, which is where his impact, academically, came to the fore. But before he went to the United States, he was invited in Japan back in the 70s, was the only foreigner invited to spend 3 months and be a guest speaker at the memorial of Hiroshima. So he spent some time there, and at all times he was clutching this manuscripts of Dumehlezi Gamenzi, and he was reading it and sharing it with people. And then the Japanese people were quite interested because in this manuscript, it was telling about a Zulu nation back in South Africa. And when they were examining it, they found a lot of cultural parallels between the Japanese people and African people. So, they started to get fascinated with it, and which is why Unodumihle Gamenzi was first published by the oldest publishing house in Japan, which is Inawa Mishoti, about 120 years now, 120 years old now, that publishing house. And after that, it was then published by Heinemann in 1982 through the assistance financially from UNESCO. This is now 1982. Then that book received, many awards, including Book of the Year and Books of Our Time in London, and many. And the other book that he also published was Emperor Shaka, not Emperor Shaka the Great. It was Anthem of Decades, which in Zulu is called Inhloko Yomoya Minyaka. So that book we also still are going to publish, but in 2016, as we were celebrating the 200-year formation of the Zulu nation, we thought it was fitting for us to make sure that Unodumihle Gamenzi is published, because that book tells a story about the formation of the Zulu nation, told by a Zulu man, and it's not, it's actually, it was a very historic moment because it's a story that is told not by someone else trying to portray the Zulu people in a certain light, but it was told as a true reflection of what happened with the formation of this Zulu nation. So we did that publication. And as I said before, we've got here in this collection, at least the paper-based collection, at least 10,600 poems that are written in isiZulu. I can tell you that part of the collection, we have 15 epics, which are similar to, which are of the same level with Emperor Shaka. But the time that we have tonight, I won't be able to take you through everything that we are doing here at the museum. But what I can say is that through Google Arts, we are developing a virtual museum, which will be live soon, we hope, so that people across the world can be able to access the museum, and then we can share stories, and they'll be able to see the original manuscripts, in high definition. Thank you very much, Mam Trina. I hope I didn't take too long. I wasn't sure of the time that was allocated to me. Thank you very much, though, for allowing me the opportunity to share with you the collection.
Siyabonga kakhulu Nsika, siyabonga for taking us through that journey about Ubaba Mazisi and the museum itself. Siyabonga kakhulu. I want to know if Dr. Kwaku Pearson Lynn is with us. Am I able to continue to him, or should I first call Sisi Yvonne Chaka Chaka, the Princess of Africa?
Go ahead to Yvonne.
Guidance there. Okay, I'd like to call on the Princess of Africa, Miss Yvonne Chaka Chaka, to address us. She has done amazing work over the years. I have seen her grow and shine in front of our eyes in the city of Johannesburg, and she went on to conquer different stages in the African continent and in different parts of the world. And now she was also chosen by Tatu Mandela himself to be the ambassador for the Children's Fund. And also she has distinguished herself by forming the Princess of Africa Foundation, using her name to make sure that she gives strength and uplifts people in difficult situations. She has also partnered, or she partner of the Action of global health advocating partnership so that people can be aware of the problems faced by people with especially malaria. Malaria is something that people want to push aside and not talk about. And health is everything. We can't do all the wonderful things we do as creative spirits without good health. And I celebrate you, my sister, for that. She's a goodwill ambassador for the United Nations. Her CV is very long. I wanted to say something. I want to hear her. Sis Yvonne, floor is yours.
Please unmute me. Thank you very much to Gqina Mhlophe, our very capable MC. I want to also thank all the other panelists who are here. Also thank our Minister of Arts and Culture and all other dignitaries. This is just an amazing time as we commemorate this great man who, by all means and without hesitating, wanted to preserve the Zulu language and the Zulu culture. I want to thank him for being who he is, for being what he is, and for making sure that the Zulu language does not perish. He went over to live overseas. He could have just said, forget about that, but he didn't. Today, we've got all these great books that Mazisi Kunene has written, which I really hope that our Department of Arts and Culture and Sports can make sure that our children get a hold of them and read them and understand who we are, where we come from, and who we need to be. I also want to say, Ubaba Mazisi, he's really left a lasting legacy for our children and those who are coming behind us. You know, the next generation will read these books and know exactly who we are. There was a small piece which said, those who speak after the event. It just touched me, you know, on the piece that was done by Zosuguma. I just got that one. And I don't want us to be part of those who will speak after the event, because Ubaba Mazisi has done such a great job for us to hang on to make sure that our children know about it. I also want to say thank you to him. Long before it was even fashionable, he wrote an anthem of the decade, a Zulu epic collection for celebrating or dedicated to African women. So you can appreciate the love that he had for this continent and even celebrating women long before it was even fashionable, where people thought the women's place was in the kitchen. We know that Ubab Mazisi was a poet and a critic who was committed to the development and understanding of the African literary form, especially in indigenous languages. And he also combined it with a keen critical intellectual with an extensive poetic vision. So I want to say to him, thank you for being who you are. Thank you for doing what you have done. Also want to thank Usis Matabo. Mrs. Kunene, you did not say, oh, my husband is gone and that's it. You made sure that his lasting legacy and it will always be there. And I want to really thank you and appreciate the work that you're doing for the Mazisi Kunene Foundation, and working with young people is just amazing because they come with new ideas and I think they make you even look younger, Sis Matab. I want to say thank you to you. Lastly, I want to say I am very, very happy that our minister has taken his time to be part of us. You know, 20, 30 years ago, our leaders would never have been there for us. But today we know our leaders are constantly making sure that they are there for us, help us, and hold us by the hand. So people like Ubaba Mazisi Kunene, he's done a very, very good job, which we do not have to forget. With that said, I want to thank Michael Lee, thank Debuho, and thank the whole team who's made this function possible, because it's a great thing that we celebrate and commemorate a great, great man who was loved by the world. And we need to make sure that our South African children and other children in the continent remain knowing who this man is and read his books and be proud of who they are. I'm glad that this is happening during the Africa Month, and I want to say, be proud to be African. Thank you very much.
Siyabonga. Sibonga kakhulu Sisi Yvonne. Kubaluleke kakhulu ukuthi sikwazi ukudlulisa igama lokubonga. One of the most amazing things my father always said was the most beautiful word in isiZulu language is ngiyabonga. Very often we forget to give thanks when things come together. And this evening could not have happened without the whole team that worked behind the scenes. So that word is important. Mrs. Matabo keeps on steering and getting this steam train going and going and going. I know she might have liked a bullet train that moves fast, 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 but no bullet train. We are with you in the steam train, my sister. Woo, woo, as Brahim Masigala would have said. Say, I'd like to welcome now our own MEC of Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, Ubabumthethwa. Odingiswayo laba onyambose laba omagaga onsibansiba umfolozi omnyama inketha abaweli nabawelayo bayiqokelela. Sibiza wena babunyambose sithi, please address us. This is a very, very important evening when we are talking about a pioneer of note, Professor Mazisi Kunene. I got to know him later, towards the late afternoon of his life. But the fire that he has possessed, I had to rewind to go back to that fire that he had touched many lives in different countries, not only in the African continent, but all over the world. So it is a great privilege for me to invite you, Minister, Mr. Nathi Mthethwa, to address us.
Thank you so much, Program Director Msutu. Come on. Thank you for directing this program today so well, as you do all the time. To Umama Matabo Kunene, the entire Kunene family, and the guests for today, this very important meeting, the Board of Trustees of the Foundation, ladies and gentlemen, and good evening. Today is a special day as we extend our greetings, warm greetings to everyone. It's special because it's a journey of somebody who had a foresight and who left a legacy for all to follow. You know, in the process, teaching a lot of people who today are well-known icons of the world. I had a pleasure of inviting Ngugi wa Thiong'o 2 years ago as my guest of honor in the Africa Month program. And one thing he left with me is that something has to happen to South Africans. They look for answers elsewhere around the world, and yet they have answers in their hands. And he was very open to me to say that when he decided to write in his indigenous language in 1977, he was influenced by Ubaba Umtimande, Mazisi Kunene. So today, it gives me pleasure in celebrating the 90th birthday of our first national poet laureate and scholar, the late Baba Mazisi. And this happens as we round down a very important month, Africa Month. Perhaps it's important for me to say this, that amongst people who influence us as government, particularly our department some few years ago, to embark on this journey of deepening consciousness in our society by highlighting not only Africa Day, which is the 25th of May, but make the whole month Africa Month so that we continue educating our society, is Babu Mazisi Kunene, and his dedication and focus on who we are, the pride of our heritage, our Africanness, and so on. So I'm filled with great pride, especially today, that our government and our department decided to have the first South African National Poet Laureate prize given to none other than Babu Mazisi Kunene. And back in 2005, we honored the late Professor Kunene, whose 90th birthday was on the 12th of May. The South Africa's world-renowned scholar, author, eminent yet unsung poet of majestic epics and literary genius, as our first National Poet Laureate for grounding and preserving African literature, history, and heritage in African languages, especially through poetry. In discharging this responsibility, Professor Kunene understood this was an assignment for him and assigned to him by his predecessors and peers. Here we think of people like S.E.K. Mkai, the likes of Makolwane Mshongwane, B.W. Vilakazi, A.C. Jordan, Walter Benson Hubusana, Nonsizi Mkweto, the Lomo brothers, both RRR and HIE, and it's very interesting that Babu Mazisi Kunene took interest, particularly on the work of these siblings who were at another level as literary giants, one writing in his indigenous language, which is isiZulu, and the other proficient in English. So these are some of the people. David Livingston Pagamile, Robin Kaluza, Inkos Albert Luthuli, Anton Lembede, Sol Bladkis, Eskia Pahlele, CLS Nyembezi, and many others. Now, when I call these names, I'm calling them because they frame our understanding of the man and the context of his growth. And a deeper look on all these names demonstrate to all to see the quality that defined their connectedness to each other in their belief in the fundamental construct that defined the Africanness of African people. African languages. The African languages are the spiritual music of African people. You have to come very closer to the languages themselves to understand its depth and its richness. The most eminent poetic tradition in South Africa throughout the 20th century was realized through African languages. A word on Makolwane, who was in the court of the King Shaka, Professor Kunene in an essay titled Portrait of Magolwane, the Great Zulu Poet, which appeared in the Oxford University Journal known as Cultural Events in Africa in July edition of 1967, says the following amongst others, and I quote, Magolwane is one of the greatest of African poets. Indeed, I would say one of the greatest world poets. He lived in the early 19th century and was the national poet at the peak of Zulu power. His poetry can best be understood within an appreciation of the historical background which nurtured his immense genius. Professor Kunene continues, he revolutionized the whole poetic idiom in his great epic on the conquest of the Zulu Empire, introduced political and social analysis, also delving deep into character. The change he brought about in discarding the usual practice of describing physical features elevated Zulu poetry to such dramatic heights as had never been achieved before. We find that the characters and individuals stand for specific social and political and historical meanings, close quote. It is within this framework that the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture took the following two decisions. The first being the transformation of what was known as the National English Literary Museum, which is located in the place which has always been wrongly named after the name of the killer of African people, Grahamstown. And we changed that museum for the development of indigenous language from the National English Literary Museum into Amazwi, South African Museum of Literature. What motivated us to do that was that you have a museum which is about the development and nurturing of the language, but all what it was doing was developing English in a place where 80% of people speak isiXhosa. And we felt that it would be an injustice to leave this thing. So we changed that. The second area was to fund students in various universities, as we do every year in all major universities, on languages, especially indigenous languages. And this for us, we think it's important in ensuring that we contribute to the development and promotion of our own languages. We do that following the footsteps of the great Mazisi Kunene, who actually trailed the place insofar as understanding, promoting and showing pride to who we are and our languages. One of his seminal works, titled Unodumehlezi Gamenzi, the late Professor Kunene's original Zulu manuscript for his widely translated epic poem, Emperor Shaka the Great, is in how it reframes Shaka's humanity away from the colonial image and prison of having King Shaka as a savage and a despot. And this is what he says. Shaka was a philosopher, king who took on great nations, close quote. This was from the Mazisi Kunene Foundation trustee, John Chatter in Isandlwana. He did that. Now, it is important to pause here because most of his works, Ubaba Umazisi, was very powerful to send a message that we as Africans are masters of our own destiny, and we are equal to all the nations around the globe. This inferiority complex, which has been portrayed on us, he actually demystified it. He wrote a lot about King Shaka, and King Shaka as a strategist, as a leader, and a warrior king who led his people using intelligence and sheer strength and power in the battle. And King Shaka himself, understanding him, made the world to know that when they praise the likes of Napoleon Bonaparte and others as heroes, they know too that we have our heroes. That way to our sister Yvonne Chaka Chaka want to share with you that understanding the likes of King Shaka, King Mshweshwe, you then have a picture of the leaders even in contemporary situation. Share with you, Yvonne, that King Shaka was identified and mentored by my great-grandfather, King Tingswai, who saw in him a lot of potential. And he said right from the beginning, as Shaka grew up in my homestead in Wamtetwa, that this young man is going places. And he took it upon himself to ensure that he nurtured him, he gives him freedom to express himself. And he actually did that, Shaka. And they grew from strength to strength as we know him now as King Shaka. But Ubaba Mazisi Kunene, using Shaka as its vehicle, it portrays the ingenuity and complexity of Africans as being equal to that of other societies, considered superior in the colonial age. It is not only about King Shaka, but also about other kings, equally legitimate and sovereign, who were eventually defeated. The institution of Poet Laureate has an ancient lineage in African society. This is a title that was not lightly bestowed on its recipient. The art of the classical poet and bard was in many respects about memory. It was honing and developing his or her skill to compose and perform high memorable poetry that a poet established a reputation. Kunene went to exile as an African National Congress, and Nsika touched on this, that he was clear about his political stance and political home, that it was the African National Congress. And is also an activist after completing his master's degree in the African Studies at the University of Natal, now KwaZulu-Natal. He was appointed, as has been said, as the ANC chief representative for Europe and Britain, while serving under the leadership of President O.R. Tambo in 1963. In his lifetime, demanded and nurtured our hopes with his poetry. He was a trailblazer. He has been praised as Africa's greatest poet in the 20th century by literary academics such as Professor Ndongela Masilela, and considered, and I quote, the literary Shaka of the 20th century, justified by his prodigious productivity. As our inaugural national laureate, he encouraged aspirant poets and inspired new talents. Kunene's poetry has shown that African traditional society was anything but prosaic. as colonialists have been wont to mislead us for centuries. And he revolutionized South African literature and took it to greater heights. So as we celebrate your milestone of 9 years of birth, had you still been with us physically, Professor, we are heartened by the legacy of your work in confronting and fighting other calamities since your departure. Today, as we battle this brutal COVID-19 pandemic, your Mazisi Kunene Foundation continues with very groundbreaking interventions that make lasting impact in the improvement and advancement of communities in forgotten rural communities. Founded in your online legacy, this foundation boldly leads the way in ensuring rural communities' access to clean drinking water, quality education, and school food supplies. And in that, the youth of today are drinking in your well. We were together with Mrs. Kunene, Mama Matabu Kunene, 2 months ago when we were celebrating the indigenous language. What came out of that event is how the legacy of Baba Mazisi Kunene is still with us. That amongst the young of our country, in different schools of the province of KwaZulu-Natal, have embraced the work of Baba Mazisi Kunene, and they are growing out of his work, identifying themselves with the legacy of Baba Mazisi Kunene. And that legacy will never, ever diminish in our country. And it will always be with us because of the work which the foundation is doing. Let me take this opportunity to commend Umam Matabu Kunene, the Executive Managing Director, Managing Trustee of Mazisi Kunene Foundation, and her fellow staff and board members. We say to you, Ma, the work you are doing will never go unnoticed. The whole world is watching, the country is watching, Africans on the continent and the diaspora are watching, especially because here, Professor Kunene was an internationalist. He understood his roots, he understood the world we live in. He was part and parcel of shaping the narrative in the world that we as Africans, we are not proletariat in the world of art, in the world of science, in the world of literature. And for that, we thank you for continuing to keep his legacy alive and continue to do that. So long as you do it, we shall ensure that we support you all the way. We do everything in our power to ensure that the world knows this literary giant long after his death. So the work of the foundation is not something which is not recognized. It will continue to be recognized. And we want all of us to continue our work inspired by the work of Professor himself. The ancient wells of African wisdom, past achievements and present aspiration will continue to inspire us all as we confidently stride into the future. The people of our continent today thirst for the fresh, clean, reticulated waters of modernity and progress. Water that will wash away the encrusted degradation of the past. Clean water that will nourish their hopes and give them the strength to strive for the realization of their dreams. And this water is found on the well. This well has the name, and the name of this well, where all of us should continue to drink is Professor Mazisi Kunene. Thank you for your attention.
Hello. Are we back on? Can you hear me? Oh,
Yes,
that's
we can.
fantastic.
Yes, Ma, we can hear you.
Hey, fantastic. Corona is trying to, push me aside. Yadelela in the Mumbi. Better know what he was a handsome guy, Mumbi Corona. Yes. But we'd like to continue. Have we listened to the to our minister? Akafuning muzo baba umthetho akafundi nje unoterasi. Ngiyaxolisa baba umthetho ngiyaxolisa kakhulu. Ukorona umthetho wakho nje. Yes, I think we've got a message from the Consul General from the United States. Have we listened to that message? Yes, yes, she is.
Thank you for the opportunity to participate today on behalf of the American people as the U.S. Consul General in Durban, KwaZulu. Thank you for the opportunity to participate today on behalf of the American people as the U.S. Consul General in Durban, KwaZulu-Natal. My name is Sherry Zalika Sykes, and Mazisi Kunene educated a generation of students like myself who yearned to learn more about Africa. There were professors who taught us about Africa, the land of our forefathers, through lenses of politics and economics and history, and that was well and good. But only the extraordinary among them helped us to see the continent, its peoples and places, with any real granularity. But those who taught us through Africa's languages, its literature, they brought us to a hard place. The soul and spirit of the continent came to resonate through us in their classes. I decided to take Kiswahili as a college student in California in the 1980s because I felt that one could not be an African and Afro-American studies major without learning an African language. My Kiswahili instructor, a Tanzanian artist named Kiure Msangi, he knew of Mazisi Kunene's work in LA, and he introduced us to Zulu and his works in order to demonstrate the commonalities between the two languages, with both being so-called Bantu languages. So he introduced us to Mazisi Kunene's work. Here is one of the poems that have been translated into English that I've always admired. You will know it is the age of the third eye that travels the expanse of purple panoramas, measured in infinite masts of mountains, spewing, cascading ribbons of thundering waterfalls that splash alluring forests with leaves in ochre red. Behold, my hand prods the earth with the rod of stories, as water gushes from below, as a nation arises from reeds, and creation mythmakers float in fabled vessels. Oh, that's just beautiful. Thank you, Baba Kunene, for such beauty. I commend the Kunene family, the South African people, and those who love African literature and peacemaking around the world for taking the time to remember his life and works, and I hope that young writers today all over the world who are writing in their mother tongues will continue to be inspired by him. Ngiyabonga kakhulu.
Oh, nathi siyabonga. Yay, sawubona. This is good. We're being joined by more here. I like it. This is special. Siyabonga, Sis Sherry Sykes. She has been so committed to supporting the creative arts in the city of Durban. Oh, Sis Sherry. And also, I'd like to welcome my CEO Rax. Siakwa is there. another person who is amazing. Prarax ngiyakubonga lapho. And I see Ms. George. Hey, ngibona bani loya? Ms. Titi. Hi bo. This is awesome. Ubaba Mazisi uhlanganisa imhlambe yalana ngiyakutshela wena. Siyabonga kakhulu. This is very, very special. Ukunibona nini nathi namhlanje. Do you want to say a few words before we start with the question and answer session? Are you good?
Thank you. First of all, to my beloved sister and friend, Matavo, God bless you, my sister. Thank you so much. To the people of Durban, one of my favorite spots on the continent, thank you for honoring this great and wonderful man, this cultural icon who was able to bridge divides, never saw them as divides, in fact, and made great strides for our people around the world. I'm honored to have been invited to participate, and it warms my heart when I think about the times that we shared in your home in Durban and when you came to visit us in Pretoria. As we are facing this global challenge, I hope it will be an opportunity for us to restructure the global system that seeks to divide and exploit us. And I hope that people of goodwill around the world will find succor and guidance from the wonderful words of the man that we honor today, my friend, Kunene. I learned something from the minister I did not know. I was a student in Kenya in 1977 when Ngugi wa Thiong'o was taking theater up country and writing and encouraging others to write in indigenous languages. Little did I know that it was the fingerprints of Kunene that influenced Ngugi wa Thiong'o. So I'm glad that you invited me. I'm glad to be present with you. Thank you for honoring me with an opportunity to say a few words. I love the beloved country. Thank you.
I hear also that Menzi would like to say a few words. Menzi, are you here? This is fabulous. Menzi, are you here? Yebo.
Sanibona.
Yebo sawubona.
Ninjani?
Siphilile njani wena?
Ngiyaphila. I just have a few words here from Baba. I'm so honored to be in this auspicious gathering. Okay, I just have, interestingly, this morning I turned on Ngambingelu Mama Kunene, Mama Wami. I greet her with all the love I have. I just need, I'm going to recite just 6 lines from Baba Kunene's poem that I used as an opening line for my own poem, which I performed somewhere at UKZN. I think it was about 2011 or 2011, 2012, UKZN function somewhere. These are the lines. Do not be like the people of Ngoneni, who rushed with warm arms to embrace a man at the gates, and did likewise on the day of treachery, embracing the sharp end of the short spears. It's from a poem called The Catch by Baba Kunene, but I used it as an opening line for a poem called Transition. Transitions is in Nguquko, where I was reflecting about what character of a human being does it take to be a good leader, and what kind of character does it take to be a good citizen. And Baba Kunene, in my few conversations I've had with him, he was always revolutionary. He was always inspiring us to be articulate both in our language and also in the language, the lingua franca that we are using right now, which is English. But he was always, at that time I was writing a lot in English, but he said to me, I gave him something to read, and he said, all the thoughts that you have expressed here, you can say them perfectly in your own language. So Ubaba really was a great inspiration to me. I just wanted to say those few words. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Siyabonga kakhulu.
That's all.
Ngicabanga ukuthi kukhona umuntu la, we've got Urax would like to say something, but kunobabu Hugh William who has been with us for a long time. And angazi ukuthi ufuna ukuthi qaphu. I don't know what is qaphu in English. Ngizocheck i-dictionary nje khona manje. Bese ngiyabela ufuna ukuthi khona qaphu in English. Ubaba Hugh William has been with us for a long time, eh? Just a word or two before ngize kuwena Rax.
Maybe I'm muted. No, can you hear me? Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you very well.
Very
well, yes.
My name is a little obscure. I'm Hugh Macmillan. I'm a historian, and hi, Matabo. I came Macmillan, yeah. I came to see you, Matabo, a year or two ago with Caroline, who I think is also part of this group this evening, and we were planning, as you know, an exhibition, a photographic exhibition, which I think is postponed on account of the virus. But I'm here to learn. But it's been a great pleasure to be here. Thank you. Best wishes to you all. I'm near Oxford in England. By the way. I'm speaking to you from England, from somewhere near Oxford.
Yes, Oxford. That's a big word.
Of English
it's
language.
A big place, Oxford. Well, we saw King George V, the name changed to Mazisi Kunene Road. Hey, Tara, that changes into. Hey, things have been changing. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. And my brother, Raxiakwa. Oh, Sukona Sisa Santewa. Anguzwa.
Happy Africa Month, everyone. And I want to just commend again the Queen Mother in our midst. And every time I go to this part of the book, which I got from Raddle's bookshop in Johannesburg in 2000, where the great professor said, dedicated to all the heroines and heroes of the African continent and all her children who shall make her name great. That is what we follow. And that is why we are never too tired to hear the name Kunene. I didn't know years after that I'll be married and I'd become Makelwane to the neighbor to the great Mazisi Kunene. So I just really want us to agitate that this book must be in every children's library across the continent. And this book must be in every great so-called libraries across the continent. And I know the son of Dingiswayo follows in his father's, in the great father's tradition. And I know that because of the work of Dingiswayo, who loved fugitives and refugees, when the Mtetwa capital was one of the greatest ever organized amongst African people, we will get the manuscripts done. We will have children from all over the world Googling in on our virtual site, looking on those great handwritings of the great professor. So we have something great to be excited about on the 90th year. I don't know what Matabo is planning for the 100th year, but Mama, we walk in your footsteps humbly because we know that you have set a trend that we are yet to undo and to become greater than what you've left. Is for us to keep the name, the promise that you kept. And we, the custodians of the promise that was kept by you, will continue the work. Pambili, Mama Tabo Kunene, we love you, we honor you, we respect you, and we pray that the Almighty and the ancestors of Umdumande continue to keep you safe for us so we can finish some of the promise that you kept. Siyabonga.
Siyabonga. Hey, but Rax, here you are. Rax
Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much.
sir, from Right Associates.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tina. And Mematabo and the minister and all the comrades there. As it has been said, my name is Muraka Abe. They call me Rax. Siafa, Managing Director of the Right Associates, and also the Project Director for the South African Literary Awards. We feel very happy ourselves in the two organizations to be associated with Professor Mazisi Kunene, and thank you very much to Matabo for pushing this journey so strongly and inviting us to also serve as members of the trust of the Mazisi Kunene Foundation. The Right Associates, as it has been said before, when it brought up the idea of the Poet Laureate, and the first person we approached, in fact, who gave birth to the title, Professor Mazisi Kunene, we spent the nights and days with him to discuss this matter. And when we looked to the side of the Department of, the then Department of Arts and Culture, now Department of Sports, Arts and Culture, 15 years ago, the doors opened, and that's how today we're celebrating 15 years this year of the South African Literary Awards and the founding category of the South African National Poet Laureate Prize. And in that sense, also celebrating Professor Mazisi Kunene, 15 years having founded this, but also happy 90 years to Professor Mazisi Kunene. In spirit, he's still going strong. He's really inspiring the whole lot of us, the youth. I hear actually the youth are stomping their feet behind us, that we want to take on the legacy of Professor Mazisi Kunene and also start to push for younger poet laureates. And it is in that spirit of Professor Mazisi Kunene that will happen. And thank you very much, Nyambos, for walking this journey with us. Mazisi and my colleagues on the foundation, thank you very much. Let's keep this the legacy strong and grow it bigger and bigger. Thank you. Thank you.
I think we will have the last person to address us, and then we'll hand over to the mother of the house, Mama Matabo Kunene, to have the last word. I hand over to you, my sister, hand over to you.
Well, hi, my name is Cynthia Robbins, and I'm married to Jackie Green, and together we visited the Kunene Foundation, but my story starts much earlier than that, because I had the great privilege of meeting Baba Kunene and the whole Kunene family, with whom I feel like I grew up into my full adulthood when we lived in Los Angeles, they in exile, me in exile from the East Coast to Los Angeles. And we were working to fight the apartheid regime in South Africa. And our journey began actually with an anti-apartheid event in Hollywood. That's when I first met the wonderful Kunene family and the delightful gatherings that they hosted in their home in LA, which was a refuge for those who care about justice and culture. And each of the members of the family became dear friends and remain so. And the spirit of Mazisi Kunene, Baba Kunene was fierce and fatherly and friendly and fun. And he was somebody I knew was always awake. He was always awake in creating wonderful, wonderful poetry. And I tell this story often, but I, as an early riser, would wake up on a Saturday morning and call him at 7:30 or 8 o'clock. He would answer the phone and say, listen to this. I've just finished this poem. And he said, this is my 200th poem today. And one would be about freedom fighting and the other would be about the river. And he was the creative genius that he brought to his very being, and to being a friend, and to being a mentor, and to being a loving spirit. And so it was a very natural progression as we worked on from South Central to Soweto as the parent Kunenes were migrating back home just before the election in 1994. I was blessed to be an election observer and to come, and in the midst of a rally of thousands without cell phones, within moments of reaching a rally, there I saw Mama Tabo and the twins, who were then young. And we found each other in that crowd of thousands of people because we were kindred spirits, and we have remained so. And years later, we had the blessing of coming to visit the Kunene Foundation and the wonderful work that has been done there. So I am pleased to be the spirit here in Washington, DC. I'm holding this extraordinary launch of the Kunene Foundation, this wonderful, wonderful treasure of original works gathered in a most artistic and beautiful way by Brother Baba Andres and the others who were working to bring and to keep to life the legacy. And the legacy is the literature, it is also the learning. And it is creating that spirit of learning and that self-determined articulation of the purpose of culture in guiding a people. And when you see the work that the foundation is doing in the village of, it's very heartwarming, because we see a whole new set of generations who are being prepared to help lead this country to where it needs to be and to help lead our world. And so as we suffer through this pandemic, let it be a time that we can be at peace, that we can take a moment to remember the legacy of a lovely, wonderful spirit. And as I say, love never ends. And so we love you, Mama Tabo, for the work that you have done and creating this wonderful, wonderful thing. And the work that Michael and all the others have put together to create the celebration, because we must celebrate. We must always remember to celebrate, even as we are fighting for justice. And you know, here in this country, we have a renewed focus on the need for justice with all of the horrible tragedies with the police slaughtering young Africans, African-American people. Yield to you. Can't hear you. I'm still on, but I don't think we can hear anybody.
It is amazing how many people have been touched by the Kunene family. And I'd like to hand over now to Mama Mazisi, Mama Matabo Kunene, the mother of this amazing foundation. And many of us look up to her with great respect. And please, my sister, before we waste any more time, let's hear you. I want to hear your voice. Ngiyabonga.
Sanbonani, Dumelan. I greet you all from this humble place, which was the last place Kunene inhabited when he was writing his poetry. I don't know if I should have been given this moment to say anything, because I'm just simply overwhelmed. I learned from Bishop Tutu that when you get to a certain age, you simply burst into tears for all sorts of things. So even now, I feel, from the words of the Minister of Arts and Culture, who, by the way, has been to this museum and has recognized Mazisi's work in many, many different areas in the translation of his work. And the event that the minister was referring to, Kwambonambi, there was a poetry contest for young people. I just could not understand how these young 10th graders could write like that. It is amazing. And that's why it's very important that we must take the work of young people and consolidate it and use places like this for the conservation of our culture. I encourage every South African and everybody else to go back and look into whatever your grandmother told you, anywhere in your homestead. Listen to the messages from them, because that's what enriched Mazisi so much. He spent a lot of time with his grandmother, Makandeya, listening to stories. And by the way, Mazisi is the second of 4 sons. And I was told just the other day by the last born in the family, the last sibling, but that, by the way, he shared this May 12th birthday with the brother who came after him. 2 years later, on the 12th of May, Nkosi Yake was born. Nkosi Yake was a mathematics genius. He taught mathematics and algebra in college. That is Mazisi's brother. So they used to argue a lot because the other one is always talking about words, but he couldn't work out all the mathematical geniuses that his brother could calculate. But the story is so long, we don't have enough time. But I want to take this opportunity to recognize Los Angeles, California, the United States at large, for giving us refuge. It's pepelo. You know, when you're running away from danger and somebody says, come into my home, I'll shelter you, California became our home. And I'm glad that people like Cynthia and a lot of people from California and Ben Caldwell are here to witness that we were not just being in Hollywood. We were working day and night. We would march. Every time we had 2 young people had been arrested in South Africa, and we were all outside the South African consulate on Beverly Hills. Just looking at that piece when Zosukuma must have been 14 when he was playing the piano during the Los Angeles riots, when Rodney Danger was assaulted. It pains me to hear about the continuation of the assault on young Black males in the United States at the hands of the police. And as a citizen of Los Angeles myself for 20 years, and when Rodney was assaulted, we were there. We saw Los Angeles on fire. But I thought that would be the end of it. But what I saw in Minneapolis the other day, it just broke my heart. When will it end? When are we ever going to get the complete freedom as people of color? And to the people of Durban, having received me as Umakoti from exile, I've had the most amazing time here. And I feel so much at home, the love and the compassion that I felt here in Durban. I don't know why I even doubted coming here. I want to pay a special homage to the Board of Trustees. Professor Kwapa, who is now retired, was a close friend of Baba Kunene. Andres Porter, the man who makes the biggest elephant sculptures in the world, he has been with his family, and he was sitting on Mazisi's late when he was passed on with his sons. I've never seen a much more loyal, reliable, dependable, focused man like Andres Porter. And I think I would not be here if he had not been able to keep his word to Mazisi, a promise kept. To my children, I know that it was not a difficult transition to come from Los Angeles because you always knew who you were. You were always the Zulus in Los Angeles. And I think I'm so grateful. I don't know if I had anything to do with that uprising because all credit is always given to the man, but I know that those 3 sons and a daughter, I had a hand in them. And when Baba passed on, my children gave up the better part of their life. And whatever economic involvement that they have had, they've given practically almost 70 or 80% of that. Now, I remember one time I was in the village and I was talking to the community there, and in fact, at the school. And I said, you know what? I shouldn't be here. Because if it wasn't for the time we spent here at Matlongo, my children and I would be running around in Lamborghinis. And I left it at that. And then one day, one lady came to me. She says, do you know that I went home and I asked my son, yini Lamborghini? And I felt ashamed because I used that term in the village. So to the world, this is only the beginning. Inkondlo engaqedwanga. This is an unfinished journey. Thank you, Yvonne. Thank you, Mamugcina. Thank you for taking on the role of spreading and working, because Mazisi believed very much that poetry and literature in the African society is used in an arena of dance and interpretation and oral telling of stories. So, Gina, it's a pity, but it's not a pity because you're doing what Mazisi dreamt about. Rax, we shall talk. I think if I pick up the work that has been done by Michael and the team, Debucho, I don't know if you're going to sleep tonight, and your team, amazing. Every minute, every hour, there's something that's coming on my WhatsApp. I've never seen people work so hard to produce so much in such a short time. Cynthia, who is my, at one point, Cynthia, people just thought she was my daughter. She was always at my house, taking my children to school, and we have become so close. By the way, Cynthia was in the room when the Artists Against Apartheid came about. She was one of the founding, she was a young attorney then. I don't know if she's ever worked a day as a lawyer. She is always in every justice project under the sun, whether it was Children Now and Artists Against Apartheid. I've never seen a person busier than that. And I just want to say, South Africans, particularly Durban, come, take a shortcut. Come and give us help here. We need you to come and make time in sorting all this work. It is too much. I find Ntsika Gumede, who has been with us for the last 11 years, is amazing, totally amazing. Senzo, who keeps all our communications intact, and Spamandla, who actually represents Amahlongo. These are young people, under-resourced, underpaid, and never in a day sulking to say, Tina, we're not going to continue with this work. This work would not be. And again, I want to say to my children, Your father is so proud. I am actually sometimes very emotional because sometimes I just tell you, as if they have nothing else to do. And welcome to the community of hard work, to the young women who have now betrothed to my sons. I now have officially 3, oh my God, 3 in one shot. Wazan Bantarabam, come close to me. Come and learn what it is to build a home, to build a legacy. You won't learn if you stay afar. You have to come close and understand ukuthi umsebenzi wakho umuzi wakhiwa wena mama. You, the mother, are the creator of a home that is stable. To all the others that are here on this network, the UCLA Black alumni, they come here every 2 years to come homage, to pay their respect to Mazisi. I'm always so touched because now they come with their own children. That's a generation after, because they'd like their children to come and drink from this well, this beautiful well that the minister, Natum Teta, has spoken of. I think Yvonne spoke very passionately about the need to get the books out here. We cannot have manuscripts permanently. One of our milestones we're celebrating today is that through the digitizing process, we have so far digitized 1/3 of the collection here. That's amounting to 44,000 digitized papers. When is this going to get into the schools? The children are hungry. You can see when they come here, when I read to them, when they interact with us, they are so eager to know, to understand about this humble man who came from a village like them, like a cattle herder, was able to continue to do so much work in the world. To the city of Los Angeles, I just wanted to read one on the citations that Mazisi received, Sanzo, from the city of Los Angeles. I think among the things that touched me at that time when it was written, you know, when you get that, whereas Mazisi Kunene came to Los Angeles and was a teacher at UCLA, whereas Mazisi Kunene was born here and there. I think the part that I like most is the part that says, whereas Kunene brought with him the culture of bringing the Africans and the African Americans together through his writings. This was a citation by the city of Los Angeles in 1993. That touched me, that recognition that he was just not a refugee, because sometimes as a refugee, you are disruptive. You get to places you are quite disruptive because you think people owe you something and you sit in a corner and sulk. We did not have that opportunity living with Mazisi and living within the South American community. We thank you, Michael. You are officially, you know, you were given to me by your mother, that I'm your African mother. So Michael Lee has been with us for the last 12, 14 years. And I've met his family when we went to Los Angeles during President Obama inauguration. And my son-in-law over there, Jackie Green. Jackie, I see you. To everyone, Ashantua is now my neighbor. Umakoti walapha emahlongo manimbona is married to the Ngidi family. Tammy and Sandile, they are amazing, amazing writers and very, very dedicated to Mazisi's work. I think I'm going to stop right there because it's so late. The work that we're doing is so immense. Sometimes I think I came here as a young Makoti when we saw me in London, and I did not know what I was taking on, but I think I've taken it on. And I brought this because he wrote so many poems. He didn't write, I think, a few words about me or to me. But I like this certificate. I found this piece of paper somewhere lying around. It's almost like it says, Mazisi Kunene to Matabo, thank you again for all of you. Your immense and unbelievable patience. Your reward is near. He signs his name here on the 9th of September, 1998. So when I see him, I'm going to ask for that reward. I kept that certificate. That's my guarantee. So when I see him, where is my reward? Thank you so much to everybody who made this so possible. I'm immensely touched. South Africa, thank you. And to everyone who participated in on this program. Siyabonga noNdunankulu waKwaZulu-Natal for his wonderful words that he wrote a long message on this commemoration. I would not have done it by myself. It takes a village to produce something like this. Ngiyabonga. Amantumande, niyolobola futhi eCape Town. It's not enough. To the Kunene family that has embraced me and taken me on as one of their family. Ngiyabonga kakhulu kumantumande wonke. Thank you.
Siyabonga kakhulu. Mina nginezicelo ezimbili ke manje na. Can't we make a request at a birthday party? I want a request ufuna ukwazi ukuthi kwakuwumabani before abe uMrs Kunene. Request number 1. Request number 2. Ubaba uMthethwa, I hear that he went to primary school once before he went to high school and did all these other clever things. I want to one day go and visit that primary school where he went to. Sizohamba noSisi Matabo. There's a rumor that Ubaba uNathi Mthethwa actually went to primary school. I'd like to visit that primary school. Baba uMthethwa, akesizwe le ndaba ukuthi ithini. Let's talk books, Baba. Let's talk fun and joyous celebration of education. That's what we are celebrating here when we're saying happy 90th birthday, Baba Mazisi Kunene. I bow out. Ngiyabonga mina kakhulu. It's been a great honor to be with you. Every single one of you, my heartfelt gratitude. Yay! Salute.
Okay, you can say thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.